Well, Jeff, this looks like a classic hotspot of a mountain pine beetle outbreak here. We're about a half mile from the city limits of Aspen right here.
Let's see if there's something. Here's one right here.
Yeah. This is a mature adult mountain pine beetle, was just caught emerging from the bark. Normally he would bore his way out from the tree, hang on the bark for a little bit, and fly off to the next available tree and bore their way in.
And what you got here is older dead trees. You had one or two 2 years ago. You got about 20 last year. And I'd expect you to have 40, 50, or 100 trees around it potentially this coming year that'll turn brown next year. These trees are just loaded. I mean, literally, you're going to have thousands of beetles come out of a tree that was successfully attacked. This tree is what we'd call a brood tree, one that's putting out a lot of brood that will go out and attack a host tree or host stand and do an awful lot of damage. Some trees are more successful in fighting the beetles off and others aren't. But, these trees are getting old enough and they're stressed enough that they're really
Susceptible to attack.
By the end of summer, you'll be able to probably see a lot of pitch tubes on trees. You'll be able to see where the epidemic's starting to spread. It tends to be exponential. You tend to get one or two trees as the center of an attack, and they go out concentrically and kill a few more trees every year. There you got, trees that have absolutely no needles on them, the bark's starting to fall off. I'd say those trees are probably 5, 6 years old. Right. And then you have some with just a few red needles on them that would be the year following. Then you have some that are still full of red needles, and those were from a year ago. Now you're getting the ones that are turning yellow and into an orange, what we call the faders, that are just now dying this year. And the beetles that come out of those will be attacking the green trees. And what you have here is what we call a hot spot or a center, and it's expanding. Where we had 2 or 3 trees die a couple of years ago, looks like there's probably 20 or 30 trees that are dying this spring. And if this continues, you're going to have probably an acre or 2 acres worth of dead trees here by the end of this season. It's very, very typical and classic for lodgepole. It's what we call an even age species. These trees all came in at the same time after some major disturbance event.
Like
probably fire or mining activity. We've bored some of these trees here, and we know that they're around 100 to 35 years old, and that's really typical of lodgepole, sometime between 100 to 150 years old. They get too old, they're overstocked, there's too many, and they get stressed.
These are exit holes where the adult mountain pine beetles have exited the tree, and they've flown off to attack another, probably fairly close by tree. So one of the natural predators of mountain pine beetles, in fact insects in general, are woodpeckers. And they have a great ability to detect larvae under the bark or immature adults and literally chew into the bark and pull those out, but there's not enough woodpeckers to control a mountain pine beetle epidemic. This is the entry point where beetles entered the tree initially a year ago, and the tree's reaction to that beetle attack was to try to literally pitch the beetle out by flowing sap out. However, this tree was not able, probably because of its age, to resist attack and the fact that the tree was stressed. And the beetles did make entry and actually killed the tree within 6 weeks after those pitch tubes were made. And you can see this tree is dotted with pitch tubes. This is evidence of the tree's immune system, if you will, a way to pitch out insects that attack.
Here's one that's classic for this year for a pitch out. It's that time of the year, the beetles are starting to come out, and you got a whole bunch of fresh pitch here, and you've got a beetle right here that's upside down and it's stuck in the pitch. It's been killed. In this case, the tree was successful in fighting off the beetle attack.
Probably one of the hardest things to get people to understand is if this tree gets successfully hit, it's still going to look like a beautiful lodgepole in green. But essentially after 6 weeks, after a successful attack, the tree is essentially dead.
Yep, that's exactly right.
Very hard to convince people that the tree is not healthy.